What is up, everybody? My name is Famous and welcome to another episode of Pokemon Go. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about breakpoints in Pokemon Go. This is a very important topic because it can help you to save Stardust and then also save you candy while getting your Pokemon to the optimal level of battle. In today's video, I will be answering what a breakpoint is and then also showing you the best Pokemon's breakpoint so you know exactly how far you need to power up the Pokemon to get the best results. For that, I will be looking at the Reggie Trio, the Legendary Beast, and then also battling against Mewtwo, which should be very helpful. But before we get into that, what is a breakpoint? A breakpoint can be broken down into two main categories, offensive and defensive. I think it would make sense to focus on the offensive side because we will be going up against raid bosses in all of the examples. But a breakpoint is the point where you receive the maximum benefit of your Pokemon, and believe it or not, it is not always at level 40 from a quick move perspective. Speaking of quick moves, oftentimes people use the quick move as a way to determine a breakpoint because there is a very clear pattern with the quick moves, and we will see that when we go through the examples. So when I first started playing Pokemon Go, I always imagined that with every power-up, your Pokemon got equally powerful with every power-up. But it's more like a plateau with power-ups not meaning anything until you're able to jump to the next plateau, which is very interesting because that is what a breakpoint is. Beyond that, there are four main factors that determine a Pokemon's breakpoint. First things first, the quick move. Secondly, the Pokemon's attack stat. Thirdly, the Pokemon's attack IV. And so, for instance, an IV of 15 is going to get to a breakpoint quicker than an attack IV of 0. And lastly, the Pokemon that you are battling against. I think with all of these variables, that's made it very tough for anyone to talk about it in a video format, but I actually think I have a very easy way to do that, and I'm very excited about it. So speaking of battling, let's go ahead and take a look at some very common examples, and if I do not cover a Pokemon that you want to know, a link will be provided in the description. But without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at some examples. So let's go ahead and get into the first Pokemon, and that's going to be Reggie Ice. If you were to go up against a Reggie Ice, the top three counters are going to be Moltres with Fire Spin, Entei with Fire Fang, and then Machamp with Counter. So let's go ahead and take a look at Moltres' breakpoint. If you have an attack IV of 15, you would receive a breakpoint at level 33 where you would receive the maximum benefit for Moltres. Up next we have Entei, which gets a breakpoint at level 35. If you have an attack IV of 15 and you're using the move Fire Fang. So that's going to be 2 higher than Moltres'. Up next we have Machamp, which is going to be the lowest of the 3. Using Counter, you would receive a breakpoint at level 28. But notice, this is going to be the first one that doesn't really follow that stair-step method. If you have an attack IV of 14 and then also 13, you also receive the breakpoint at level 28, which is fairly interesting. So let's go ahead and move on to the next of the Reggie Trio, and that's going to be Reggie Steele. For Reggie Steele, the top 3 counters are going to be Moltres, Machamp, and then also Breloom. So you might be asking yourself the question, well, why are we covering Pokemon that we just covered again? Wouldn't they have the same breakpoint? Well, actually, no. The reason for that is because it also depends on the Pokemon who you are going against and what their defense stat is. But let's go ahead and talk a little bit about Reggie Steele. So with Moltres, that breakpoint's going to jump up to level 34.5, which is going to be 1.5 levels higher than what we saw with Reggie Ice. Up next, we have Machamp using Counter. If you have a Machamp using Counter with an attack IV of 15, their breakpoint jumps up to level 34, which is going to be fairly interesting. Up next we have Breloom. So like I said, as usual, Breloom is going to have a lower breakpoint than what Machamp does. And Breloom's breakpoint is going to be at level 31 versus a Reggie Steele. So let's go ahead and finish off this Reggie Trio versus Reggie Rock. So going against Reggie Rock, the top counters are going to be Kyogre, Machamp, Breloom, and then Hariyama. I decided to go ahead and use 4 on this list so you can see what Hariyama's looks like, because for the most part people tend to use that over Breloom. But first things first, let's go ahead and talk about Kyogre using Waterfall. When you take a look at the breakpoint, this is going to be a very high breakpoint. This is actually the highest that we have seen so far. So basically, it could be worth it for you to power up Kyogre all the way up to level 38, but that's going to be your own judgment. Up next, we have Machamp. When we take a look at Machamp, it's going to receive its breakpoint at level 28, so once again, a very low one. When we take a look at Breloom, it's going to receive a breakpoint at level 26.5. Up next, we are going to be taking a look at Hariyama. This is going to be an interesting one. For Hariyama, it has a very high breakpoint at level 38. So you have to ask yourself the question, well, is it worth it for me to get up to that final breakpoint, or am I okay, for instance, in this case, with going with that light green 6 instead? That's going to be up to your own opinion. So that's going to be the entire Reggie trio. I think now we should go ahead and head over to the legendary beast. So the first legendary beast that I want to talk about is going to be Entei. When you go against Entei, the top 3 counters are going to be Kyogre, Tyranitar, and then Gyarados. So for Kyogre using Waterfall, it's going to get a different breakpoint. At level 33, if you have that attack IV out at 15, that's going to be a fairly average number. Tyranitar's is going to be a little bit on the high side when you're using Smackdown. It's going to be at level 35. But once again, you have to decide, is it worth it to get that final benefit? Because 35 is going to be a lot higher than what you hear for the most part. Let's go ahead and move on to Gyarados using Waterfall. It's going to be receiving its breakpoint at level 34.5. So that's going to be right in the middle of the other two. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one, and that's going to be Suicune. So for Suicune, the top 3 counters that you would want to use in a raid are going to be Raikou, Zapdos, and then Venusaur. So let's go ahead and talk about it. If you have Raikou, you want to use the move Thunder Shock, and it's going to receive its breakpoint at level 31. This is going to be fairly interesting because Thunder Shock is not as good as you might think it is. For the most part, Raikou's able to do so well because of the move Wild Charge. But anyways, this is going to be the breakpoint. It's a fairly low level if you think about it. Unlike Raikou, Zapdos is going to unfortunately have a higher breakpoint when it uses the move Charge Beam, and that's going to be at level 36.5. So in all honesty, I would recommend you powering up a Raikou over Zapdos first, and then maybe just getting that Raikou up to level 31. Because even if Zapdos gets this final benefit, it still can't really compete with Raikou on a lot of levels. So let's go ahead and take a look at Venusaur. Venusaur, this is going to be the weirdest one that I've seen out of all of them. It receives a breakpoint technically at level 40 with a perfect 15 on its attack. As you will see in the top corner, yeah, just that single little green blob, that's the only one. But if you go down below that, the next breakpoint is going to be at level 22.5. That is so low. At the end of the video, I'm basically going to make a suggestion to kind of find a middle ground. Because charge moves are going to be important, I don't think you should leave it at level 22.5. So let's go ahead and finish off with Raikou. When we talk about Raikou, the top 3 counters that you would want to use is going to be Groudon, Rayquaza, and then also Mewtwo. With Groudon, you would want to use the move Mud Shot. You want to basically get that double stab bonus versus a Raikou. So let's go ahead and talk about the breakpoints. For Groudon using Mud Shot, the breakpoint is going to be at level 32, which is going to be a little bit below average of what we have seen on the list. Up next is going to be Rayquaza using Dragon Tail, but unfortunately, when I was using the Game Press website, Rayquaza was accidentally not loaded in as an attacking option, but I did reach out to someone at Game Press to kind of talk to them about that, just to make sure that they are aware of it. So hopefully that will be fixed by the time you go out and try to check some of these out yourself. But let's go ahead and move on to Mewtwo using the move Confusion. When we do that, it's going to receive a breakpoint at level 33.5, which is going to be just about average. So we have covered all of the trios that I wanted to talk about. The last and final one is going to be versus a Mewtwo. So when you battle against a Mewtwo, the top 3 counters are going to be Mewtwo, then Ging Gar, and then Pincer. So a Mewtwo with Psycho Cut, what is going to be the breakpoint? This is a fairly low one. It's going to be at level 27 for Mewtwo when it's going against a Mewtwo. But keep in mind, we have seen a higher level beforehand, so I will have it adjusted on the chart. Let's go ahead and move on to Ging Gar. By the way, for Ging Gar, I decided not to use Shadow Claw just because it is a legacy. I don't feel like that would be fair to everyone, so I decided to use Hex instead. By the way, if you do want to check out Shadow Claw, as I said, a link will be in the description. But if you are using Hex, it's going to receive a breakpoint at level 31.5, which is going to be fairly low. I thought it would probably be around 32, 33, but fortunately for us, it's going to be level 31.5, which is going to help us save a ton of Stardust. And then last and finally, we have Pincer using Bug Bite. And the breakpoint for Pincer using Bug Bite with an attack IV of 15 is going to be level 30.5, which is going to be below average for what we have seen on this list. So we have covered quite a bit of information, and it may be hard to kind of stomach all of it at once. Maybe this is a video that you kind of check through once or twice, but maybe with this overall capture, it's going to make a lot of sense. So what I decided to do on this was to go ahead and put the raid boss on the screen and then provide you the counters going from the best to the worst, at least from a top 3 perspective, and then showing you where the breakpoints are going to be at the different levels. But keep in mind, because we have some of these Pokemon on multiple raid bosses, that means that the breakpoints are going to be at different levels. But by all means, feel free to take a picture of this. This is going to, however, be the graph that you want to take attention to. This is going to be the thing that you want to screenshot. And that's going to be the ultimate breakpoint that you want to see for your Pokemon. So basically just look at your Pokemon and then determine whether you have an attack IV of 15, 14, 13, or 12. I didn't do anything lower than that. And now you're going to know what level you need to get your Pokemon to get that optimal benefit from a quick move perspective. By the way, for Venusaur, I went ahead and lifted it up since it had that weird 22.5. I would recommend you to power it up to level 30 so you can get a very good benefit out of Frenzy Plant, but you're also not spending a lot of Stardust in the process. So anyways, that was a very difficult video to make, but I did enjoy the challenge. Hopefully you did learn something from it. If you did learn something from it and you enjoy this type of content, be sure to like and subscribe. Also leave a comment in the comment section below if it was helpful to you. If this video ends up doing well, I can cover something called bulk points, which I've also had a couple people mention as well. But anyways, I hope you did enjoy it, and I will see you next time.
Hit me like a tidal wave.